welcome to No Broken Legs. Week 2 Browns victory Monday. Jimmy, how are you today?
Man, I'm wonderful. The Browns 1-1, sitting tied for the lead in the AFC North, so I'm great, man.
Yeah, and the Browns get a 31-21 victory over the Houston Texans yesterday. They didn't look their best, but they still got a 10-point win. Fans, I've never seen Cleveland fans more upset for a 2-score victory, but yet here we are. It's Cleveland. I guess after 20 years of bitching about losses, they just have to bitch now. It's habit. The individual taking the brunt of this anger from Cleveland fans is Joe Woods. Jimmy, are you on the fire Joe Woods bandwagon?
Well, absolutely not, because take any defensive coordinator in the NFL and take his Mike linebacker, his play caller, his defensive captain, and in about 4 days try to replace him and see how cohesive their defense looks, especially this early in the season. Losing Walker was a big deal because I do agree at times early in that game, the defense looked disjointed. They looked like there were missed assignments. It looked like Joe Woods early in the game was calling a very safe game plan because he wasn't sure what to expect from his defense. And kudos for Houston. They were actually able to attack and exploit it a little bit. But then fortunately later in the game after the rookie came in, he could just play a soft zone because they weren't going to be able to take advantage of it. Brandon Cooks could no longer really hurt him. So in the second half, there's nothing you can judge to say, man, the defense looked bad, because there wasn't any need to do anything spectacular. Now, in the first half, I was concerned, but I think a big part of that was Walker being out. And Malcolm Smith actually played a pretty good game. I just think the defense definitely looked out of sorts early. They look like they still need time to gel. Like maybe they should have played a few series together with their starters in the preseason.
Yeah, they look like a team that has, at any time, they have 6 to 9 new players on the field. And losing Walker when you've spent the whole off season trying to get these guys to gel, and now you have a new guy calling the plays, it's not an optimal situation. I've said before the season, I said last week, and I'm going to say every week until the Browns hit their bye, I'm not judging the Browns defense until after the bye. We saw it with the offense last year. They looked kind of disjointed a lot of the first half of the season, and then everything came together after the bye. Let's hope the defense does the same thing, but I'm not going to kill Joe Woods just yet. The thing that has me very concerned, Jimmy, is the injuries that are piling up. OBJ, who knows when he's going to play again. Jarvis Landry has an MCL injury. We'll find out later today what that looks like. That still hasn't been announced as of noon. The offensive line is starting to get beat up too, Jimmy. Chris Hubbard was out of this game. We saw Conklin and Wills were both limping at times. Jimmy, it's starting to pile up here for the Browns. They need to get healthy.
Yeah, they need to get healthy, but it's weird, like we played the Cleveland Browns, started the season with a top 5 team, and then came back in week 2 and played a, bottom 10, bottom 15 team in the league. And the injuries were apparent at times, but the last I checked, there's no significant injuries on the defensive line, and they are not performing to where we thought they were going to come out and play. And I think that's a problem. But I do, Grant Delpit, he splashed a little bit yesterday. He got himself a sack and a forced fumble. I believe he also had a tackle for a loss. Taki recovered the fumble. Believe it or not, he was actually in the right space.
He made a couple of decent tackles. He was at least one that we both noticed.
Yeah, made a couple plays. Newsome made a couple plays and got his first taste of getting burnt by a wide receiver in the NFL.
That was just, I loved that penalty that he took because it was just an unabashed, you know what, fuck it. It's a penalty. I'm not letting you catch it.
Yeah, kudos to him for not letting him complete the pass. So he was burnt and he made sure there weren't going to be any extra yards past where the penalty took place. But I just think we knew, even with the addition of Walker, we really felt coming in the linebacking core was going to be the issue. Mac Wilson, JOK is going to need time. The linebacker depth isn't great, but we felt the defensive line would attack enough and the secondary would be good enough to kind of hide a little bit of that problem in the middle And now I'm getting a little worried about the defensive line. I need Myles Garrett to eat. I need the defensive line to make a few more big splash plays that everybody notices. But the injuries, what's wild is, Hubbard's out, Wills is hobbling around, Conklin's hobbling around, and let me look. We still ran the ball for 156 yards and only gave up 2 sacks. One of those, Baker held onto it too long. The other one was a really good play by the defense. So even with Hubbard out, there's still depth at the offensive line, but we do need to get healthy because there are some big games coming up that the Browns are going to have to win to stay right there where they want to in the division lead. So they're playing teams coming up that are not as talented as them. I don't think that they're as well coached, but they're going to need to be as healthy as possible to get some W's coming up here on the schedule.
That leads me into something I wanted to bring up with the defensive line. I don't necessarily think the defensive line is playing poorly. They didn't let Texans really get going running the ball. And the one big run they gave up was the Tyrod Taylor, but that seemed to be more of a missed assignment from the linebackers.
I agree.
But one of the things that hurts the defensive line's production is with them playing so soft defensively, teams are eating them up with short, quick passes and not.
Yes.
We're seeing Garrett at times get pressure on the quarterback. The problem is he's not getting home and getting the sack. So is that a product of the defense playing soft for the time being, or is Garrett just not getting the speed that we want him to have?
I'm going to say it's a little bit of both. We are starting to see Johnson and Hill are starting to make some plays out there. As we said, Newsome and Delpit looked good. Ward got burnt a couple times, but he still didn't. He gave up one big play, but Ward is still a very, very good cover corner in the league. And we're going to imagine as they continue to gel, they should be a better unit. While we talk, we feel Tyrod Taylor is right in the middle. Like if you ranked all the starting and backup quarterbacks in the NFL, Tyrod Taylor probably comes somewhere in the middle. Andy Dalton is probably right around that range now at this point. Who knows? It may be Justin Fields. Hard to say there. Matt Nagy was very non-committal yesterday afternoon and in his press conference this morning. But the Bears' offensive line has struggled. Even the Bengals were able to get pressure. But I agree. I think Woods is going to have to trust the individual players on defense to start making individual plays because you're not going to be able to keep playing the soft cover 2 and the soft shell because teams are going to do just what Houston did. And they're just going to eat up that like 8 to 10 yard range where there's room to run.
Looking at that same issue on the offensive side of the ball, Jimmy, you brought up that even with the injuries, they were able to run the ball effectively. With Baker's injury, they were running more screens and short passes just to protect him. We're 2 games into the season. Nick Chubb only has 26 carries. Now he's gone for 178 yards, averaging 6.8 a carry. They have not used Nick Chubb as much as I expected, especially early in the game. Hunt seems to be getting a lot of those first half carries. Is this the Browns taking sort of a little bit of foot off the gas because of the extra game, trying to save these guys?
Yes. So before I get in to answer the question, I'm going to give some love to Nick Chubb. So Nick Chubb now has a touchdown in 8 straight games. Only Hall of Famer Leroy Kelly has a longer streak for the Browns since 1950, and that streak is at 9. So in the next 2 weeks, Chubb should hit that mark and pass that mark. Nick Chubb has 50-plus yards for the 35th time in his Browns career. Only Jim Brown had more in their first 4 seasons at 41. So as this season goes on, Nick Chubb is going to start passing team records set by Leroy Kelly and Jim Brown. And that's incredible. Yesterday, he rushed 11 times for 95 yards, a touchdown, which put him at an 8.6 average. So I agree with you. Nick Chubb needs more carries. But I do think some of it is we didn't think running the ball all game would beat the Chiefs after last night. I may think differently about that. And I don't think they felt they would need Nick Chubb to have 20 carries against the Texans to get a win. But there are some, like I said, there are some games coming up on the schedule against teams that Kevin Stefanski is expecting to win. And I think he's going to expect to win them by running the ball. I think Chubb's carries will go up, which means it's probably his average will come down. His yards per carry will come down. Their yards per play as a team will probably come down because they're on a great pace right now. But I do think as we get into the next few weeks, I think you'll see Chubb's carries go up. But I also think Hunt is going to just stay solid in the game plan because he's looked really good too. He's running really hard. And for whatever reason, Stefanski seems more comfortable running play action with Hunt on the field than Chubb. For whatever reason, I'm not.
That's because defenses respect Hunt as a receiver a lot more than they do Chubb.
Yeah. Like I said, I'm not saying it's good, bad, whatever. I'm just saying that just seems to be the flow. Seems to be when Hunt is in the game, they could be running, but it does seem to be that's where most of the play action is coming from. But I do think Chubb will get going. I mean, he's carrying the ball at a great clip here early in the season, but I do think these next few weeks you'll see a lot more Nick Chubb.
This game reminded me a lot of many of the games we've seen the Cleveland Browns play for 20 years, except the Browns were on the more talented team side of the equation. The Browns look like, especially when Landry went down and guys started hobbling, you could tell the Browns just pulled back and said, we're going to win this game. We're just going to get the fuck out of here with a win and try not to get anybody else hurt. Houston played really tough. It seemed like the former Browns were really up to come into Cleveland and show that what they did here was not, was not an example of who they were as players overall. Hats off to them. The Browns still won by 10. I can't be that angry when the Browns won by 10. I just can't.
No, because in the second half, and it may very well be because Tyrod wasn't in the game. The second half, it just felt like the Browns pretty much dominated the second half of that football game.
Yeah, the one touchdown Houston got was when the Browns were playing real soft on defense. That was not quite prevent defense, but it was damn close.
Yeah, and I do agree with you. Like we talked about while watching the game, when they tried that little fullback trap, I don't think that's a play that you would normally run against the Texans, but you're just seeing maybe in this down and distance, is this something we can use in the future? I did not like the reverse to Schwartz, but they tried that as well on the little halfback pitch to Schwartz.
Yeah.
But I think that's a play to just kind of put in the playbook, and maybe you get the defenses watching it, and then the next time you run it, he doesn't pitch it to Schwartz, he keeps it. But to what you were saying, right, about this is how we've seen it, right? Because for years, right, we've had teams come in and play Cleveland and are like, well, if they cover that one guy, they can slow down the passing attack, right?
Yeah.
So Baker completed passes to 9 different guys. I think Landry getting hurt early, I do think that affected the passing game quite a bit.
And then they just didn't trust Schwartz or Donovan Peoples-Jones after their...
Nope.
Peoples-Jones just had an awful fumble. Stop making excuses. You catch the ball over the middle, hold on to it. He had the ball... He had the ball kind of out away from his body. He gave the defender a nice target to knock it away, and the defender obliged him. And Schwartz, I didn't see any of the video of this, but Terry Pluto said he got an earful from Stefanski for not finishing that route and not being in the right place on the interception that Baker threw.
Yep, I mean, we saw it on the replay. It was evident. And I feel like that had a big part to do with the fact that the tight ends then had 12 targets in the game for 11 catches and 107 yards. Like, I think it was, at that point, Stefanski was like, you know what? Between Chubb, Hunt, Felton, and these 3 tight ends, I can chew up enough yards and clock to win this game. We're not going to let Baker take any more hits. We're not going to do anything silly. We're going to win this game, and it did happen to be by 2 scores. Like, guys, come on. Browns fans, Jesus. We won a game against a team we were supposed to beat by 10 points. Like, it's okay. It's good. This is a good thing. We don't need to be running like fire sale blitzes against Davis Mills, and the second half of a game we're winning. The soft shell cover 2 in the second half was fine. They didn't need to do any more than they did to win the game. They're going to be okay. And I do, once again, kudos to Kevin Stefanski. I know there's always the actually crowd. Well, first off, season-to-season stats don't usually carry over, and playoffs and regular season are different. So Stefanski is now 6-0 following a loss, which is a big deal. That's a big change for the team culture because under Kevin Stefanski, there has not been losses rolling over, and that is a big deal. But kudos to the defense. Since last year, they're now 8-0 when they've had 2+ takeaways in a game. It's wild to me to think that in 2 years, the Browns defense has had 8 games with 2+ takeaways, because I feel there were years we had 2 all season. Like, it just felt like that.
And Jimmy, you mentioned some stats there that lead into some young players that we were hoping might be able to do something. And Grant Delpit looked really good. He caused one of those turnovers or he didn't cause a turnover with a sack, but that was just a great blitz rush.
Play.
Yeah, it was a big play, and it really stunted their momentum. And we also saw, we were kind of joking before the game when we saw him in there when he fumbled the one punt, but Felton Jr. gets 2 receptions, 51 yards, and just a really nice 33-yard touchdown reception. Nice little spin move, broke a couple tackles. That's somebody that, especially with these receivers out, is probably going to get a lot more looks moving forward.
Yeah, it just gives another dimension, another style to the offense. We saw Stefanski in Minnesota, even with Dalvin Cook. We saw him, do some pretty great things with Jerick McKinnon, getting him the ball in space to spell Dalvin Cook. And I think you might have that in Felton as a guy who maybe you give him a 4-play package each game and put the ball in his hand with some blockers in front of him and see what he can do. But yeah, the offense, there's just weapons everywhere. But the offensive line needs to get healthy because the Bears have a good defense, right? Yeah. You're gonna have to block up front. But I think next week, as opposed to this week, I really think you will set up the pass by establishing the run, as opposed to trying to set up the run by establishing the pass, just because of the teams you're playing against. I think against the Bears, you got to line up and you got to push them off the ball. But the Bears also don't have very good corners, but we might not be able to attack that much because of the wide receiver injuries. So it's going to be watching the injury report is going to be a big deal this week to see who's healthy, who's practicing, who looks good to go for Sunday. But Felton ran really strong. Like he looked like a guy who is getting an opportunity. He's being coached up, and he knows when he's on the field, he's got a chance to make a play, and he made 2 nice ones.
Yeah,
so
he definitely
kudos to
belongs.
Him.
The thing I'll be looking for the most next week with the Bears is what you mentioned earlier. What does the defensive line look like? Because they're going to want to try to run the ball, and Andy Dalton is not pushing the ball downfield. So if he's in there, they're going to have to play up to prevent him from getting into a rhythm. And if Justin Fields is playing in there, I want to see how does that line control the line of scrimmage and not give Fields what he wants, because they should be able to make him uncomfortable. He did not look very good against the Bengals. No. He's young. He's going to be up and down, and I want to see the Browns defense really make him uncomfortable.
Yeah, that's what has to happen. And I think that goes whether it's Dalton or Fields. Obviously, it would be 2 different game plans, but these are the kind of games with Joe Woods where what can you do? What can you make the Bears scripted plays uncomfortable for them? And that's what they have to start doing.
All right, we want to wrap up. Jimmy, you mentioned something when we were texting before the show. Something happened in the Muni-Lot. I am completely ignorant of this situation. So can you explain first of all, can you explain what happened?
Yeah, so unfortunately, the Browns get a really nice week 2 win. We get a bounce back. Like we said, Stefanski continues to not lose 2 in a row. We beat a team we're supposed to beat. We beat them easily. And when I enter the Twitterverse yesterday afternoon to check out all the Browns takes, and I go to trending, and the Muni-Lot's trending, and I'm like, well, that's cool. No, it's not cool, because it's 2 fucking Browns fans fighting each other. And then finally some dude stepped in to stop the fight, and then people attacked them for stopping the fight. Come on, Browns fans. Like, I get it. Like, we've been bad for a long time. I understand. Like, there were plenty of times where I saw people never leave the Muni-Lot. You never even went into the stadium because there was more fun to be had in the Muni-Lot. But let's try to give a shit about each other. Let's try to be unified. Let's not look like idiots. There's just no point to it, man. Like, come on, this should be a fun 17 weeks. I don't think there's a whole lot of losses left on the Browns schedule. Some later in the season, but we got a stretch set up right now for a lot of wins if this team is going to be as successful as we want. And the last thing anybody wants is to go to the Muni-Lot thinking they're going to get caught up in a fucking Donnybrook, because it was wild, dude. Like, these two dudes just squared off and started throwing hands, and a couple guys broke it up, and then there's like 20 dudes fighting. They're breaking people's tailgates. They're breaking people's tables, like running, knocking shit over, knocking over beer coolers. Like, it was totally classless and ignorant. Come on, Browns fans. Let's be better. We got to change the culture. Kevin Stefanski is changing the culture on the field. Let us change the culture of the Browns fan base. Let's not always look like fucking idiots. Please, if you're going to go to the game, drink responsibly. Don't get in fist fights with fans of our team. If the guy was wearing Texans gear, it wouldn't have surprised me. But they were both wearing Browns gear. Come on, people.
The team wins by 10. They're going to make the playoffs, and people are getting into fights. And today, people are just raving mad about the Browns. And their bye is going to be in Week 12, and this team's going to be 8-3. And I'm just already exhausted by how much complaining Browns fans are going to do, knowing that this team's going to be 8-3, or maybe even 7-4. But even then, I still have very, very, very vivid memories of watching a 1-31 football team that didn't even belong on the field. So I'm not super concerned. And I guess the best way to end today's podcast, I think, would be with the word expectations. Cleveland fans need to stop thinking that the Browns are going to go out there and win every game by 40. It's a ridiculous mindset. It's a ridiculous expectation. We see it with the defense. Everybody expects this defense to just come together because they have talent. That's just not how it works. People have to manage their expectations, and what we really want is we don't want the Browns playing their best football in weeks 1 and 2. We want them playing their best football late in the season when the games really matter. And we hope to see growth with the defense, but I'm not panicking until after the bye week, and I'm not going to panic when they win it by 10 points. Jimmy, they won by 10 points.
Like,
what the hell?
It's like Atlanta might be the worst team in the NFL, and they damn near pulled off a comeback against Tampa Bay. But you know what the Tampa Bay fan base and media isn't doing? Overreacting. Now, granted, they've got some capital to back on, but like the Cleveland, we were 1-31. We lost a ton of games that were actually winnable, where our coaching staff cost us wins, where if you just would have done this instead of this, you could have won the football game. And now we're beating teams by 10 points. Guess what? Everybody in the NFL has good players. Because of the Deshaun Watson narrative, the Texans have been beat up more than they probably needed to be. They're definitely better than the Jaguars. They're probably better than the Jets. They might be better than the Falcons. And we beat them by 2 scores. And it was never in question in the second half. Like, had the Texans continued to score points with their rookie quarterback, which wasn't going to happen, the Browns would have been able to score more points. Like, it was a perfectly acceptable game. Like, be happy, Browns fans. Be happy. The offense looks good. Baker is throwing the football at an incredibly, like, just...
He's 40 of 49 on the season.
Like, he's throwing it so efficiently. And also, all you Browns fans and all you national media that beat up Baker Mayfield for the interception against the Chiefs this last week, I would like to hear the same energy on the interception Patrick Mahomes threw last night, because it was the exact same fucking play. So, please, be fair, Browns fans. You want Baker to beat Patrick Mahomes? Well, they were the same quarterback against a good defense late in the game. So calm the fuck down. But no, like the offense.
Can I just add that Lamar Jackson just threw an absolutely abhorrent interception into triple coverage to Tyrann Mathieu? I didn't see the first one yet, but the second one that he threw was just awful, just awful.
And he tried to throw a third one.
Yeah,
like Matthew broke up and like.
Everybody relax. The Browns are fine.
Like they're going to be good. There is enough skill on the defense. They're just taking their time. But they didn't need to show. You just should not have to show anything special to beat the rookie quarterback who didn't know he was going to play in the second half. It's okay that they got some yards. It's all right. Like the Browns' numbers, what they're doing offensively to what they're giving up is wonderful. It's a great mark to start the season at. Like, it's my only concern is the D-line. I would like to see, but I agree with you also. the D-line's getting there, but the linebackers aren't holding up in coverage enough to where the quarterbacks can still get rid of the ball. So it's all got to work together, but I would like to see just a little bit more individual performances from the D-line. But other than that, I'm not worried about the defense. Saul Newsome and Delpit both make some good plays. Malcolm Smith made some good plays in Walker's absence. The Browns are going to be okay. We're 1-1. We're tied for the division. We're going to beat Chicago next week. It's all good, Browns fans. We got this. I know there's a lot of like Browns media still bashing the defense, still bashing Baker, still bashing the play calling. Well, you can come to No Broken Legs and you can get the honest truth that the Browns are good. We're going to be good. Just listen to us. We will guide you. We will give you the right information.
I agree with all of that. Jimmy, that is a great place to end. Thank you for joining me on this Monday afternoon.
No place I'd rather be. Until next week, brother.
When we will be celebrating another Victory Monday. For Jimmy Champ, I am Evan Belfiore. Thank you for listening to No Broken Legs.
Every action has a repercussion. Lyrical bullets don't make me get the bussin'.